Cool. I think we should be all good to go. It's a minute far past the scheduled time. Welcome for anyone who has not known me yet. So I'm Supriya. I'm one of the Wiki L&D professionals who have been running the Makerspace cluster within the L&D Shakers group so far. It's been over a year now. Oh my goodness, time flies. And I'm now today, accompanied by Nivi, who is also going to be co-hosting this session with me. And she is one of the prime core team members of Makerspace, who has joined us recently over the end of last year. And for anyone new on what's Makerspace and stuff, so we've got a couple of quick recap on what we are here for, what's our purpose, what we've been doing over the year. And then Nivi will be walking us through the brilliant storytelling challenge topic that we've got for the day today. And also, we've got our very esteemed guest presenter, Toby, who's going to be walking us through his experiences with very beneficial, exhaustive storytelling and how it has shaped up more immersive learning experiences. With that on, let me quickly try sharing my screen to show you guys a beautiful deck that we've got written. Uh, Hopefully that works. Give me a moment. Yeah. Are you guys able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Um, so what's Makerspace? That's what we're going to be seeing first. So Makerspace has been the experiential learning platform that we have set up for over a year now within L&D Shakers. And it's to primarily practice, build, and showcase your growing abilities in terms of anything learning and development. So we aim to month on month, quarter on quarter, provide you with real world case studies and business examples that we then turn into challenges. We have more of a competitive spirit within the community to kind of get participants hooked up for that particular time bound to work on a particular challenge. And more importantly, get your hands dirty with anything that you wanted to try, experiment, and pivot, and walk away with a good artifact that you can then hook up onto your portfolios. So that's been the kind of vision and purpose of why Makerspace exists today. It's for anyone who is an L&D enthusiastic and who wants to kind of, as I mentioned, experiment and just try things out and then take that over to their career journeys so far. And for it's also for anyone who's passionate to kind of get more open feedback on anything that they have been trialing, try to get into their existing career work streams before getting into the long term, kind of trying and building it with a very closed, safe community. And how to get involved. Yes, so if you've not already kind of stepped into our Slack channels, we welcome all of you in there. So we have a dedicated Slack channel within the L&D Shakers Slack community, which is called the Three Shakers Makerspace. You will be able to find us. Or if you're having any troubles, please reach out to myself, Supriya, or Nivedita, and we can route you to the right channels and we can hook you in. And even if you have not been through with Makerspace over the last few months and quarters, it's absolutely fine. We can start with this new challenge, and you're still invited and welcome to kind of join this new challenge of us in February and kind of brew it along from there. And if you also want to give a hands-on on trying the previous level challenges that we have held in the community so far, that's also available, all as resources for you to kind of get your hands on. So yeah, anything around Makerspace, please do reach out to myself or Nivedita, and we'll be more than happy to help you. With that, I just wanted to also give you a quick snapshot of what Makerspace is going after for this year. So we run academic years like with every other schools. So we started our very fresh year in September, and we had the very engaging portfolio building challenge. So we had almost 30 plus L&D professionals build their first level L&D portfolio with us over a time bound of 4 weeks, which was a massive win. And we had a gesture link of all portfolios exhibited as well. So anyone interested, please do reach out. We can share the portfolio gallery. But that's how we started the bombarding year in September. And then we had a very interesting learnathon, a first of its kind session, where we pulled in L&D professionals over a live case study, which we were in sync, and we were there for on the kind of the live stage for a couple of hours, but we solved it and we tried cracking it as a group in terms of what the best learning solution for that particular case study could look like. So that was like the best learnathon that we have had in the past, and we have had very good feedback asking this to be revived sometime soon again, and we are working on that to bring it back in one of the next quarters. And in December, we had a very festive, moody open mic session, which was more for a platform, an open platform for anyone who wanted to come and showcase what they've learned through the 2025 beautiful year. So we had a good bunch of participants taking up the mics and presenting what they have learned. It was fewer techniques, fewer process changes, fewer how they went about building resilience over the year, and so on and so forth. But every single piece of learning was very, very close to heart, and it was like very engaging for the audience. And after all of that very good kind of sprints, we are now in January. So we are just getting on with our storytelling challenge. We just wanted people to all come back after the holidays, spend some time in their careers, kind of setting up things from what they left before the holidays. And now it's like good time for us to step into a core next challenge with the community, and this is the time for everything storytelling. And going forward as well, until we'll be having one more challenge before we break for Easter, and then we'll have another one full quarter where we are still working as a core team to identify which could be good potential topics for you guys to challenge within the community. But that's how we have broken our academic semesters into, if I can call it that way, the learning semesters. And we do have annual holidays after the July. So yeah, we run academic years within Makerspace. With that all shared, I would now like to hand over to Nivedita. She will be introducing Toby for all of us, and she'll also be guiding us through what the challenge is going to be looking like. And we are all hooked up for very interesting conversation with Toby. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any feedback, please do keep them rolling on the chat, and we'll be picking that up once Toby has his conversation done. So yeah, over to you, Nivi.
Thanks, Supriya. Yeah, I don't think I've met a lot of you before. My name is Nivedita. I'm also based in Amsterdam. I heard someone say that before. You can also call me Nivi. Yeah, I'm happy to be here today for the kickoff of the first challenge in the year this year. Um, our challenge, the theme of our challenge this year is storytelling, and we're very fortunate to have Toby Newman with us today. He's an experienced L&D leader, and essentially he's going to give us a little bit of perspective on storytelling, and then we'll move over into what this specific challenge is about. In the Makerspace, what are we going to be making together over the next 2 months? Over to you, Toby.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so my bit is going to be relatively short. I'm going to try as much as I can to not talk so much. But I wanted to give you some basic overviews of the storytelling from my perspective. So I think the best where I can start is that kind of the initial argument or premise was that what is the business case for storytelling? And I must admit, I spent quite a lot of time trying to get my head around that because it doesn't compute for me because storytelling is what we do. Um, I think I think I'd say probably we've got away from being good storytellers and being good um, auditors to information, and not just information, but getting the information over in a way that somebody understands and somebody really truly gets and does something with, most importantly. I saw a quote somewhere that says, facts inform, stories transform, which I quite like. And for me, it's quite hard to come up with case studies, if I'm being truthfully honest, because for me, storytelling is everything that I do. It is innate in me. It is kind of just something I can naturally do. If you feel that you're struggling with storytelling, or you think, oh, where do I start? The First of all, it's got to come naturally. You don't want to start writing a script and saying, right, everybody, I've got a story for you that's going to, kind of explain my point for me. It just, yeah, people will start walking out. So the first thing is for you as individuals to think, what is my story? What is the experience I've had? I talk a lot about self-awareness, and this is a big part of it is, are you aware of things that are happening around you, things that are happening inside your training in the business that you can think, oh, that's an interesting point. That's an interesting way of doing it. I'll bring that up the next time I do that training. So kind of make yourself little notes of little stories, little things. Even just if you're a TikTok fan or you like watching YouTube fan, is just start making little memory notes of kind of, oh, that's a funny way that they did it. Film is, Hollywood is storytelling. So if you want inspiration, watch films and don't watch them just as an entertainment piece, because obviously that's still fun, but try and put your kind of learning hat on as you're watching it, or re-watch old films that you love and think, well, what did I love about that? About the story, not about the characters necessarily or the individual bit, but what about the story? Was it a natural arc? Did it go beginning, middle, first act, second act, third act? Did it twist it? Or, some films will have the ending at the start, like a Pulp Fiction, and then rewind through it in different things, so it keeps you thinking. Or something like Memento is one of my personal favorites for doing that. Or does it kind of go off in different tangents and all that kind of stuff? So if you really want to get better at storytelling, watch the people that do it well, and Hollywood is the best place for that. I've made myself some notes here, so bear me a second. Let's see what else I got. Yeah, I kind of talk about the pub test. Now, me being English, kind of like to go down the pub, cafe, social area, whatever you want to call it. But the conversations you have in those environments, you don't start with facts. You don't start with, kind of this happened and that happened and that happened. You naturally tell a story. So, unfortunately, a lot of people, I think wrongly, kind of turn off that social bit of them and then go into a training going, right, I need to be professional, I need to do this and stuff. Like, no, be yourself, tell a story, and tell it like you are telling your friends, and be genuine. It's not a script, it's not a polished thing. It's like if you get things wrong or you don't quite remember it, it doesn't matter. They're not there sitting there kind of, oh, no, that person didn't say that exact quote right and stuff. It's you got to roll with them and let them into that story of yours. For me, one experience that really kind of brought this home. I was in a training doing the usual kind of icebreaker. Who are you? Who are you? And we did, was it a one interesting thing? So people go around people from different countries and stuff. So it was like somebody from France, somebody from Belgium, somebody from the Netherlands. What's your interesting thing, or what's one interesting about your country or your region? And we got round to one person, and said, "What's one interesting thing about you?" And he went blank. Like, I go, there's nothing interesting about me, and a bit of my heart died because I'm like, that it's not sad as in that person is sad, because everybody has a story. everybody has a different experience. If you think you've led the most boring life, you really haven't. You've had thousands of different experiences happen to you and your family and your friends and your work and everything around that. And it's just about bringing those pieces in and making sense of them. So for me, for that person to think there's nothing interesting about me, it's like maybe somebody hasn't sat them down and said, these are the things that are really good. Maybe it's a leadership problem, or a challenge in that particular scenario, or maybe I don't know what it is, but it kind of caught with me to say that everybody has a story, everybody has something in them. Um, I don't, I'm just conscious of time, so I don't want to kind of like have a conversation and questions about it. I'm just checking uh, if there's anything key that I'd like to talk about. Um, no, I think I've covered everything I want to do. So yeah, again, that's a nutshell. I don't want to start talking about case studies and business case, and this is why it's important to do that, because it should be something you're in. And I think probably the biggest advice would be is don't start with facts. Don't start with like kind of the process. Go with what's broken. The kind of, we should be marketeers. We should be salespeople rather than trainers because we're selling in a development. We're selling in a process of how they improve themselves. They don't know how to improve themselves, or they don't have that urgency inside them unless they feel, not just see, but feel something is broken or something needs to change. So that's where the story bit comes in. You need to make them feel that there's something broken, and that's by use of stories of saying like, imagine you're in this situation and that happened, and how does that make you feel? And that's that kind of connection that you need to have with your audience. And once you've got that in, then you can add, well, this is how you solve it. This is the model. This is the whatever it is to do it. But you've got to go in with that kind of, why am I here? What is the connection? What is the tug on me? And I'll leave it there because otherwise I'll just ramble on for hours. And believe me, you don't want that. But I'm happy for maybe questions or a discussion or whatever.
Any questions? I don't see anything on the chat, but if anybody wants to just mute themselves and ask your questions for Toby.
We'll also have some moment for questions after the introduction of the challenge brief.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Toby. I think for me, what stood out was also when you said it's not really one specific tool that you use. It's really in the fabric of how you work. It's it's not a specific technique that we're saying we
Yeah.
introduce at one moment, but
And
it's
everybody's different.
working.
Yeah, I've worked with multiple different trainers, and we all have our different ways of doing things. We'd all have our different techniques. And so if I said, even this is the way I do it, to other people like, yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. I mean, I was talking about stress with one of my colleagues before. I know Guy's on the line. Hello, Guy. Thanks for joining. And we've spent many a time talking about stress and pressure, and the idea is that stress is in people talk about a stressful environment. There's no such thing as a stressful environment. There's a high pressured environment. How you respond to that is your stress. But for me, the stress of seeing an inbox full of 3,000 unread emails is like, that kills me. Whereas you can't see, but I have an untidy desk. And I know other people that would pull their hair out for having an untidy desk, a different stress. And story is the same thing, is that, what works for you and will not work for an audience. And it's the same as the audience. What works for one audience is not the same as one to another. So if I go back to that awareness piece, it's not just finding the stories and finding the kind of things inside you, but using that awareness to judge your audience. Is it a very high, not necessarily a high powered. He doesn't have to be, I've trained CEOs that are just as jokey as, the person down the pub kind of thing. So it's not about hierarchy, but it's about an audience that you sense to see, do they want to just get on with it and give you the facts and get out? Or is it more that they're a bit more relaxed? And again, I'm not going into stereotypes of different cultures, different countries, because yeah, you can stereotype, but it's a lot, you get into trouble doing that. So it's judging your audience. Does the joke land, for example? Or, if you're too scared to tell a joke, that kind of thing. So there's so many things that you got to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, that's such an interesting point. Essentially, we're taking facts and theory, and we're trying to think about how do we make it relevant, how do we make that relatable, and essentially using the story to give facts more meaning, make it more not just about the what it is, but also why it's relevant to someone and what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Facts won't move you.
Hmm.
Emotion will move you. Like, those we talk about changing behaviors. Somebody won't change a behavior unless they feel and they want to do it themselves rather than just somebody says, like 90% of people believe this. Like, yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
I'm not them. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. There's one more question on the chat, Toby. So it's like, what I struggle is with the predictability. I think people who have followed many workshops, trainings by now know that the pattern of the personal stories shared at the start is to connect to the rest of the training. How do you keep this original?
Cool. Yeah, that's a great question. Originality. You mean in terms of how do you keep like me original, like the presenter, or how do you keep the stories original? I don't know who put that.
Yeah, I asked the question. Maybe I can elaborate.
Sure.
I'm just thinking back to like experiences I've had myself in workshops that the trainer or whoever starts the workshop with this personal story
Mm.
to make the rest of the training feel relatable or relevant. And then I already see myself like eye rolling, like, oh,
Yeah.
I've heard this before, or I've seen this pattern, how you break up workshops or trainings. And it feels very predictable. So I was wondering, like, how do you keep this original?
Cool. Yeah. Um, and I think that comes down to, I mean, maybe it's a cop out of me saying, well, it comes down to individuals. I think where I've seen like you've seen, kind of that same old story, it's usually comes out of that trainer has done that thing 1,000 times before. And so because it feels just, oh, here's, like they're running through their steps, they're running through their slides. It to us
Yeah.
it doesn't feel relatable. So as a trainer, you've got to be aware of that and tweak it and change up the wording, maybe change up the difference. So you've got to feel, like I said before, you've got to feel the audience and feel, am I losing my audience by telling this same story over and over and over again? Am I losing myself? As in, do I feel like I'm getting bored by just repeating the same thing over and over again? I think there may be the more technical way is to have just in your pocket multiple different stories. So if you know that you're going to be running a same training over and over and over again, then you shouldn't just be using the same stories. You should be kind of almost having a manual, of all these different events that are similar to this experience, and then picking different ones. It's almost to keep yourself on your toes rather than the audience. And I think my other point related to that is that if you're telling a story in inverted commas about a situation and you get eye rolls and you get this kind of sense that the audience isn't with you, then you're not telling the right story, if I'm being honest. You're telling a story because you think, as in me, the trainer, the ego that I've got, I think it's important. But if I'm not connecting right to my audience and they're not like not necessarily sitting on the edge of their seats, but if they're not engaged with that, then that's my fault. I'm telling the wrong story. I'm not connecting it properly. Maybe it's a case of, and I'm sure you've all seen this and done this, that you use your own personal experience outside of the company, but your audience are all kind of, hardcore of that industry, or maybe it's logistics or finance or whatever it is. And they're going, yeah, I've never worked in, like, to give you an example, for me, I worked in customer service for years and years and years. And so I can talk about my experience of customer service and this experience and that experience. But in my last company, I worked for logistics. That's nothing to do with customer service. So if I start using that story about, oh, we did this and that was the pain and this was that, they'll be sitting there going, what are you talking about? That's nothing to do with me. And so, boom, gone, eye rolls, whatever, person's an idiot, whatever. So, yes, there are stories, but you've got to make sure that that connection with the audience is there. And it's a very hard thing to do in the moment to start kind of realizing that audience and seeing, am I losing people? Is what's the body language like? It's almost like 101 training in terms of understanding your audience and reading it and stuff. But yeah, I think the two things is making sure that the stories are 100% relevant to the audience that they're given, and pardon me, and have different stories up your sleeve that if one's not fitting or you're lacking in that engagement, that you can switch to other stories. But I hope that answered in inverted commas.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Toby. On that note, we're going to just pop over to the challenge itself. So our challenge for the next
Oh,
next
Guy's got a question.
I mean, yeah, don't mind. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, is that all right?
No, that's okay. Let's do
S-
one question and then move over.
yeah, I mean, Toby, yeah, great stuff as usual, and quite nice to see you again. I was just thinking on what you said, and for me also for storytelling, I basically first ask me what is my goal, and I think I basically have four goals if I want to tell a story. The first one, what do I want to make them think? In other words, is that story going to make them interesting? I mean, it makes me think about something or that they can relate. Or another one might be just to make them move, to make them really take action and getting the movement. It might also be, and that might be a little bit more extreme, to make them laugh or to make them cry. And these are the four ones. I mean, do I just want to have a storytelling, say, look, I mean, this is a funny thing, etc. I say, good stuff, nice stuff. Or eventually really go on the emotion and say, oh my goodness, I mean, this is almost, and I've had that sometimes in the past, almost also on myself, because taking very personal stories, and I can feel a little bit of an eye drop, etc. And that's I think as well okay. But I first need to ask myself the question, okay, what is typically the goal? What I find difficult also, and I finish with that for 30 seconds, is that you never know how your story, if it is a brand new one, how it is going to be accepted, or what is going to be the impact, because it's the first time you try it. The point is that if you start repeating many different times the same story, you lose completely the fact that you're not spontaneous anymore, and people see that. And that is, to me, one of the biggest difficulties, is to have a new story. You don't know what the impact is going to be because it's a new one. But if you repeat always the same, people start seeing that this is being very well prepared, and you lose the spontaneity completely. Just those two different comments that I wanted to give.
And just lastly to add to that, that kind of, it may be like, if you think of comedians, they write their jokes, their stories and stuff, and they are, fingers crossed this is going to land. But I'm sure we've all seen comedians land dead on their ass because the story's not funny, the story is just not right for the audience.
Didn't work, yeah.
But they go out and do it again, and they try it and they tweak it and they do it again. So I think we cannot be afraid to be personal and tell stories where they fit right, just because, oh, I don't know, they might come across wrong. It's like, yeah, but then you can't progress and you can't improve unless you put yourself out there and see what their reaction is and then change it afterwards.
Thank you so much, Guy and Toby. Yeah, essentially, we want to practice that muscle of how we actually able to create those engaging stories as well as that in the moment thinking to be able to adapt them. And that's exactly what we'll be doing with this storytelling challenge. Apologies, we're running a bit over time. If you need to leave, we'll make sure that we share the recording after as well. Yeah, Supriya, if you could share
Yeah, I would share the link.
challenge in the chat.
Yes.
So essentially, the challenge is titled Storytelling for Learning. So we want to use storytelling as a medium to develop a learning experience, a workshop, or an activity. Our fictional scenario is, I think Supriya is just sharing it in the chat, and let me share my screen with it. So while you open it, we can all look at the same thing. Like Supriya explained, we usually work on a fictional scenario for challenge. So a fictional scenario is essentially something that's very familiar to most of us, right? There's a company, they have a lot of teams that are working well within their teams, but the communication with across departments not so great. They have a recent product launch, but the outcome was a bit underwhelming. So essentially their work is like separate storylines in a novel, the different teams that are working together and they're not converging. And we, as the learning leads or L&D experts within this fictional organization, our challenge is to design a workshop, an activity, or a learning experience. Maybe it's something that's multi-level, maybe it's one instance of a learning activity that essentially helps these cross-functional teams learn from each other as well as weave that story together among their teams. Learn to communicate not just the facts, but the stories that travel, that stick, and spark action. How we're going to be doing this is that we will post the kickoff. Essentially, we will share some resources and share more about the challenge itself in the Makerspace Slack channel. If you're already not on the Slack channel, you can leave a message in the chat or email us after. We'll make sure we add you there. And the idea of Makerspace is that it's collaborative public learning. So essentially, we're learning together and we're not trying to make the perfect session facilitation plan. We're not trying to make the perfect learning experience, but we're trying to work together. So share early with your artifacts that you're creating, get feedback, give feedback to others. I love the perspective that Guy shared on the different types of stories that we can leverage, and that's also the guideline that we want to share. Pick a storytelling angle. We also have in the challenge brief some inspiration to get us started with, but essentially we will, through the course of the time, we will be working on Slack channel asynchronously, sharing artifacts, sharing ideas, and of course reviewing each other's work. It would be lovely if we actually have a lot of people also jumping in and looking at each other's work, so we're able to really make and learn together. And we will set up a different showcase space essentially for us to come back together, learn from a few of our outputs, but also just reflect on the whole concept all together again. We'll have maybe even more people who are not here today, but essentially for us to learn together through the process, but also come back and reflect together.
Amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So as a takeaway for anyone who's not able to make it up today, or even for us as a refresher, we would share the recording of this session on the Slack community chat. And we can, as Nivi mentioned, let's have these chats more lively. Let's have it more engaging. Let's have it as early as possible. So any idea, any thoughts you come up after the session, please start hosting them on Slack chat threads, and let's kind of have these conversations on it. So yeah, thank you so much for staying 6 minutes beyond as well. Thank you so much for all your great enthusiasm in getting this challenge started. We would be sharing, as I mentioned, all of the resources on the Slack community. And if any of you guys are not already on the L&D Slack community, and if you guys want to, add you in, please do send me your email and I would share an invite shortly. So yeah, thank you so much for all of your support. See you soon.
And
Cheers,
thanks a lot,
everybody.
Toby, for your time.
My pleasure.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.